Oh,
Yeah, look at those. Hey, we're live too, by the way.
boom. Well,
Just want to make sure I got you. Hey, everybody, welcome to What Do You Got? It's been a couple weeks, couple months.
Couple months for sure.
Brand new show. If you saw the thumbnail, you know. Hold on, I'm adjusting Jeff. Oh, no, that's me, actually. Oh, whoa.
I am being adjusted, everybody.
Okay.
What do I look like?
Okay, dude, you move like every 10 seconds and completely mess up whatever. Jeff, what are we doing? What are we talking
What
about?
are we doing? So, everybody, you guys have been hanging out in the chat already over at TikTok. You already have a little bit of a gist. If you just tune in here on YouTube or any of your other platforms, listen to this, watching this, whatever it is, we are going deep into a book called Penetration. Not the type
Would you
of
say
penetration-
that we're gonna penetrate it?
We are going to penetrate penetration with Ingo Swann's corpse. No, I'm just kidding. So we're talking about this guy called Ingo Swann. He's not called that. Well, his parents called him that, but that's his name, Ingo Swann. He was selected for a secret government project called Project Stargate, where they did studies into the investigations of the mind with being people with psychic abilities, put them through rigorous tests, multiple levels of these tests, just to see if they actually had this gift. They had them remote view around the world and at the moon, bring up some pretty spicy conspiracy theories that have been since debunked. Conspiracy theories, but some of them are kind of fun. We'll get into a little bit here. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to leave them in the chat. We will get to you. We're going to be taking some breaks along the way to get to everything and hear some stories. So bear with us. But Sam, what do you got for us?
What do I got?
Man.
Well, I mean,
Take
before we
yourself
dig into it, man, we're gonna dig deep into it. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're good?
Been living the dream. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading, studying, posting some stupid TikToks. But that's pretty much it. Obviously, as you know, I'm getting married. That's coming up pretty soon, a couple months. Super.
Yeah,
super
congrats,
pumped
man.
for that. Yes. I know you have some similar news, right?
Yeah, I got engaged on New Year's.
Woo! Sam got engaged. That is
So,
awesome. W's in the
We're doing
chat
with our
for Sam.
lives.
Yep. Getting engaged, man. Moving on to the next step. That's what I'm excited about.
Also, I'm
But-
confused if... Yeah, I don't know if our analytics on YouTube are working, because it says that we haven't had a single view, even though I've pulled up the YouTube, but it doesn't matter. But... Yeah,
we need
man.
some guys from the chat to come right over to YouTube. Let's bring some love over there. We'll give you this type of media that you guys are craving. But no, Sam, obviously you've been working. You exhausted from working?
No, man. We had a storm, like a winter storm, so I didn't even have to work today.
I did.
I was going to spend all day trying to set this up. You can see how that went. Now your lighting just changed a little bit. Whatever. Yeah, we're just going to run by it. But
So, couple things I actually wanted to ask you, man. I've been dying to talk to you. Your calves, bro. I know this is not that type of podcast, but your calves have been killing it. Garland's
I know,
an
dude.
all-star.
yeah, we finally got an all-star in Garland, and yeah, man, they're killing it. I mean, they've lost some pretty bad games lately, but what are you going to do,
For real.
But-
But with the Celtics, at least they're higher up than they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew that. I knew the Celtics were going to be ass this year. But
Well,
everybody knew that. Also, I'm putting this off. I didn't realize how much I actually looked into all this until I reread this outline that I made. We got a lot to cover, man.
Yes, we do. I actually got to pull that outline up too, just so I can kind of follow along with you, so I'm not just blindsided.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, pull that up. And while he's pulling that up, everybody, welcome again to the stream if you're coming in. We're talking Ingo Swann and Project Stargate. So we're not going to get that deep into Project Stargate, because that would take a long time, and I don't think either one of us has done enough reading on it. But so the base level, before we get into it, if you have no idea what the hell any of that I just said means, Ingo Swann was a guy that worked for this thing called Project Stargate, which was a government program to use remote viewing, astral projection, to mainly spy on the Russians, was the main intention of it. And in this book, the main book that we used for the research, Penetration, it's all about Ingo Swann. It's kind of an autobiography from his point of view about how he was like accosted by the government a few times to look at the moon. He met aliens, he saw UFOs. It's pretty amazing. I mean, the book, I don't think I would recommend the book. I don't know about you, Jeff. Would you recommend Penetration?
It depends. So here's the thing, guys. I recommend the book if you're willing to sit down and really take the time to try to understand exactly what this guy's talking about. Realistically, guys, like Sam went on Audible. He got an audiobook, listened to it. I dug online until I found a free copy, like a PDF that I just pulled up and read. I'm cheap. So please send me.
Dude, I told you, you get a free audiobook every month with Audible. Also, I got the free audiobook and I got the actual physical edition to flip through, to refer to. Yeah. Dude, you gotta go deep. But specifically what I was asking with like recommending the book, what we're going to be talking about today mainly from Penetration is the book split into thirds. We're going to really focus on the first third of the book, because the middle portion, for the vast majority of the pages, at least it felt to me, is just Ingo Swann talking about the moon and talking about government papers on the moon. It just becomes one giant conspiracy theory about the moon, which is fine, but it kind of gets away from any ideas of, you know, what does he call it? Earth-side consciousness and like space-side consciousness. Right. And then, of course, the third part of the book is him talking about psychics and talking about psychic power, because besides his work with all this stuff, he was known as like a painter, and he did some psychic investigations. I think I read that he even did a couple of like cases, like a couple of like missing persons cases.
Yes, he did.
I don't think he solved any of them, but
no. You know, man, not to get off topic, but there's a lot of people that do that now. They say like they're psychics and they're actually like employed by police departments in big cities and stuff like that. Which is super crazy, because I mean, normal people like you and me would think psychic abilities were just something from Anchorman, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I got I think we'll play it. Honestly, should we play it before we get in? I have a clip from 60 Minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
I can play a little section from that.
Let's do it. Everybody from here, I know unfortunately you'd have to leave this live, but jump over to YouTube, pull up another computer, pull up a tablet, whatever it is, jump onto our YouTube right now. What do you got? Podcast. Type that right in the search bar, right? Give us a subscribe, give us a like. We're about to play some videos based on psychic abilities, Ingo Swann type stuff, all right? I haven't seen this yet, so I'm excited as well.
Hey, can you, okay, here, I've seen the video. I'm gonna like should I make an Instagram post or something? I can tweet it out, the stream.
You can.
Here, I'm gonna do that. I'll play the video. Here, let me pause the music.
Pause the music. We can't let anybody hear this music.
Pause the music.
Oh, there we go. Pause the music. I heard the music. You guys heard it. You heard it here. So while Sam is getting stuff set up over there,
I got it set up.
Never mind.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Leave your moon conspiracies in the chat. I want to see some of these things. I want to see some people trying to call in and talk to us. I'd love to talk to you guys about some of this stuff.
Okay.
60 Minutes. Rewind.
So hopefully this is loud.
Who among us hasn't had the unsettling experience of thinking about someone when suddenly the phone rings and that person is calling? Or how many times have we heard about a friend who wakes up in the middle of the night with a premonition, sometimes tragic, that later comes true? These psychic phenomena and others like them are increasingly the object of scientific research in the United States and around the world. 60 Minutes set out to chronicle some of that research.
Yeah, this was a video I found on YouTube, surprisingly, and I honestly couldn't believe that 60
In
Minutes
a research laboratory in Brooklyn, sliced ping pong balls over a woman's eyes fill her vision with opaque light. All she can hear is the sound of waves crashing against a shore. In a room next door, A man is suspended in a contraption called the Witch's Cradle, his eyes covered, his earphones playing constant static. These two are clearing their minds. They are going through something called sensory deprivation, preparing them for an ESP experience. In the Soviet Union, a film tells of a Russian woman who claims she can move objects across a table without touching them by means of psychokinesis, the energy that pours out of her fingertips, a phenomenon that defies the laws of physics. Are these things real? Laboratory-controlled telepathy? Psychic power that can move physical objects? Real or not, they are part of a growing scientific interest in psychic phenomena.
I'm going to disconnect now, Tom.
If you accept the theory that humans can communicate at an extrasensory level, why rule out a whole other order of living things, like plants?
Okay.
I'm changing frequency.
This is the hypothesis of Marcel Vogel of IBM.
I'm gonna mute this guy talking because who gives a shit. But I'll just talk over him to make this more interesting. I'm sorry, I was like,
We're back.
if you, Jeff, damn, you're on your phone. I still want to make an Instagram post too. So what these guys are doing, I'll narrate for this guy because I've seen this video a few times. So these two dudes are claiming that they can like manipulate the cells of this plant with their minds. And now this guy, I don't want to interrupt him here. I'm pretty sure this guy is like talking his way through the plant.
Is a rather wan split philodendron, which Vogel has hooked up to a polygraph machine. The morning we filmed this,
So they're giving
Vogel
this-
observed
They're giving
while
it a
one
lie
of his
detector
colleagues
test,
who claim
basically.
psychic power
They're
took
lie
a trip
detector testing
inside
your
the
plant
plant
in this video. You guys
itself.
gotta check this thing out.
In the psychic world, this is sometimes
I
referred
didn't hear
to
what you
as
said, but yeah.
out-of-body
No,
experience.
I was telling
Now,
the chat to get over it. You
we
can watch
are
this. Well,
one
actually, I'll post
with
a
the
clip of
plant.
this later, but you guys can see it.
Okay, so
Let us now look
now this
at-
guy.
the cell structure that is present in the stem of the plant.
So what are they asking?
All right, I'm in the leaf. Let me get down into the stem.
Well, he's in the leaf, and now he's making his way down into the
Fine. Now
into
look at the
stem of
wall
plant.
cells in the stem
Then they're
and
gonna ask
describe
him
what
if he
you
was
are
inside
now
the plant.
seeing.
All right, I started out more toward the center of the stem. Now what I'll do is I'll just go back up
Guys,
into
let us know
the
in the
leaf.
chat if you'd get down inside of the plant.
There I am. I'm in the leaf now.
Like,
All right, now I'm out.
okay, now this
Back
guy's
up
out
in
of
the
the
leaf.
plant.
During the trip, Vogel monitors the
This guy's got
polygraph
out
to
of
note the
the
philodendron's reaction to the strange visitor.
Here, hold on a second. I don't want to finish watching this. So basically, what those two dickheads were doing was just talking to a plant, which this takes like a long portion of this video for some reason.
Scientific instruments. An independent research organization in California known as the Stanford Research Institute contracted to study psychic phenomena under
Now, this is the
laboratory
place we're gonna be
conditions.
talking about.
Last fall, they spent several weeks with a 25-year-old Israeli psychic named Uri Geller, and they cataloged a series of remarkable feats. He went through a series
you're
of
missing out. Head
experiments,
on over to
but
the
either
YouTube.
my
You gotta check
skepticism
out
of the
this
presence
video.
of two cameras had a negative effect. Although
What
he
do you
claims
got,
to be able to
Bobcats?
start broken watches by passing his hand over them, he couldn't start the one we brought with us.
But just 2 days
Alright, now
ago
it's
in
a
a
lot of
demonstration,
potential
they brought me 5 watches, and I fixed all of them.
But guys, what do you guys think? If you're watching
Geller
this,
asked me to
if you-
draw
if
a
you have any
letter while his
thoughts
back was turned.
about what we're going to be talking
drew
about
the
and
letter
getting
L,
deep into, please let me
And
know.
then he drew something similar.
Obviously, send likes, send gifts. We're open
Later,
to all
while
of it.
we were not filming,
Obviously
he
not beggars,
psychically
we
bent
do
a
choose
knife
to live
which
good
was on the
lives.
table.
So if
He
you
has not
guys
been
wanna
willing to
support
try
us
this while
in
the
growing
cameras
this
were
podcast
rolling.
So we can give
He
our
asked me
future
to draw an
wives
object while he
the
was out of
Range
the room,
Rovers they
and he
deserve.
tried
I
to
know
read
they'd
my
appreciate
mind
it.
to tell
We'd
me what it
appreciate
was.
Because then, if we can make this podcast take off, they will be
Okay, I'm
off
going
our
to put
backs.
2
So
things
please
that
support
appeared
the
in my
bros.
mind, and
Let's
if
get
I'm
us
wrong,
huge.
you show me what.
Get
The
millions
first
and
thing
millions
that
of
when I
likes.
asked, is it a part of a man? The first
Dude, this
thing
guy
that
looks
appeared
like
to me was
Sylvester Stallone.
something like this, like this, like this.
Who,
like
Uri
this.
Geller?
And then,
Huh? Yeah.
and then
So this part is
when
kind
you
of
kept
interesting
repeating
here.
the word,
So, DJ,
he
explain
appeared
what's
in
going
my
on.
mind,
Explain
and I
what's
might
going
be completely wrong. Again,
What's
I'm
that?
saying it to you.
Explain what's going on for everybody.
Oh, sorry, I'm making an Instagram post. So basically, I'm not gonna play the audio here. I'll just explain what's happening. So he's having this guy think of a thing in his head, and he's drawing it. And he started drawing a foot, and then he drew a bird, and then the guy said he was actually thinking of a bird. So
Wow.
yeah, I guess.
So lucky
go.
guess or psychic abilities?
I don't know. I think probably I don't know what this is. I'm sorry. I'm just adding like random ass hashtags.
So right now, what's going on is we're watching videos over on the YouTube. Go check that stuff out. This guy's doing some remote viewing, using his psychic abilities to draw feet, rather, however your English prefers to say it, and birds. And apparently, this guy was thinking of a bird, and he knew it. So jump over to the YouTube. It's pretty cool. Sit in some techie background, with stars everywhere. I appreciate your comment on my nice cheese fingers, Mind of Lexi. Anybody in the chat or watch this, run over to her thing and fucking comment, man. Or not comment, but give her a follow, whatever it is. Because we out here relearning and burning.
Okay,
Right,
so, yeah.
Right.
So I thought that was just an interesting video. I enjoyed personally the people talking to the damn plants. That guy, I don't know if they asked before they went into that plant, but hopefully they did. I guess it was 1970. Didn't have to. Well, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. But do you want to get into it?
Let's get into it, man.
I think we got everything set. Okay, let me get a drink of my tea. We got two people.
I can open it up with the first little bit here if you want. You want to wet your whistle?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. You don't have to read anything here I got on the outline verbatim, but...
I'll read it verbatim, man. You did a lot of time typing. So everybody, this is a very detailed, deep dive typed by Sam's little fingers.
And before you start, like I said, we're not going to go deep into Stargate. This is mostly about Ingo Swann. So this is just a refresher on Stargate.
Right.
Jeff,
we will have a deep dive into Stargate in the future on a different episode.
Yeah, one day.
One day. There's no dates set. This is like a Mayweather fight. Like, we just say we're going to do it, not when. All right.
Oh.
So pretty much, let's start us off here. Project Stargate was a secret U.S. Army unit established in 1978 at Fort Meade in Maryland by the Defense Intelligence Agency. And SRI International, which is something Sam was referring to earlier when we were talking, they were sent to investigate the potential for psychic phenomena in the military and domestic intelligence applications. The project and its precursors and sister projects originally went by various code names: Gondola Wish, Stargate, Grow Flame, Center Flame, Project CF, Sunstreak, and Scanate. That stuff's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. Sam did a good job typing it.
I didn't type that, but that's, like I said, this is basically just like a consolidation of information. But yeah, so SRI is that building that we saw in that video. That's where a lot of this, like a couple of parts of the story are going to take place at SRI. But do you want to keep going, or do you want me to get it? Like I said, you don't got to read this like verbatim.
You got it. I know you have a mental outline.
So Stargate, like we said, was basically involved in remote viewing. Like we saw in that video, they had dipshits like Uri Geller, who is most likely a fraud. I mean, I'm not going to call Ingo Swann a fraud or any of these people that do this kind of psychic research, but I think anybody that dabbles in like the telekinesis, like the spoon bending and all that stuff, I'm not really buying any of that. But
Not.
Why not?
Why not?
Because nobody's ever done it successfully.
You don't think so?
No, we just watched a video of Uri Geller on 60 Minutes not be able to do it.
Right, but you don't think anyone has been able to do that?
I don't know. I guess I can't say anybody. I personally don't buy it, but that's just me. So, anyways, so you might be asking yourself a really logical question: why the fuck would the U.S. government like spend? I think what they ended up spending, I don't think I got the number here, but it was like $10 million just on Project Stargate, possibly more.
Dude.
Probably more, considering the government probably wouldn't want to admit they spent more than that.
Dude, probably like $10 billion at least.
No, I don't think that much, but because in like the 1970s, the U.S. found out that the Soviet Union was spending 60,000 of their, or 60 million of whatever the hell their money is, on psychic research. However, that was probably complete bullshit. That was probably more of like shitty information that the Russians disseminated
Right.
to get the U.S. government to believe it and waste money. I mean, like these, I don't even know the word, but I want to say psyops, but not psyops, whatever. This misinformation shit was used a lot in the Cold War to make opposing countries spend money on worthless bullshit, basically. Right. So for the most part, the U.S. government probably got fooled into doing this, but the two guys who they had lead this were Russell Targ and Harold Putoff. And I don't know if you think there's anything strange about those names, but
they sound like could be spy names.
No, I mean, they sound like two guys who would head up a research project for the government into remote viewing. But
is that really what you were getting at?
Yeah, that they have the dumbest names I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get back to like we got fooled into this, so I was trying to feed into they were spies. That just
dude, they could have been spies.
Dude, it was Hydra. That's what it was.
So there was a lot of people that would come in. They wouldn't exactly hand select people. Like guys like Uri Geller, however you say it, was a world famous psychic. I mean, this guy like took the world by storm in the 1970s. He was on like the Late Show. He was everywhere. In fact, for any Pokemon fans out there, Alakazam, the Pokemon, is based off Uri Geller. To the point where Uri Geller, sued Pokemon for using his likeness.
For any Pokemon fans out there, that's crazy.
Can the TikTok people hear me when I'm talking?
Hey, let me know in the chat, guys. Can you hear Sam when he's talking? Because otherwise, I need to make an adjustment because you guys are just watching me look at something. So let me know.
Let me see here.
You can hear Sam. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
sweet.
you, Maddie Kelsey.
So a couple of notable people besides Uri Geller that were in this, besides Ingo, one guy named Pat Price. Okay, he was a police officer and a former Scientologist, which interestingly enough, we're not going to get into this, but I think it was Russell Targ, or maybe both of them, were also Scientologists.
Right.
So I don't know if that fed into their belief of like this otherworldly idea. Who knows? But
I wonder what started all of that. I'd love to at some point take a deep dive into like, I don't know, there's like moon studies dating back to like the earliest of information.
Into moon studies?
Yeah, like just different beliefs that people had of the moon.
We could get into that. Not today, but
no, not today, Zerd, but at some point.
Maybe on Monday we'll do more of a relaxed episode, just talking about the moon.
Talk about the moon and how it's rusting. Stay tuned.
So, yeah, that's actually how Price met Putoff and Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann was also a Scientologist. So a lot of Scientologists in the story for some reason. That's how they all met each other. And his claim to fame was he was working with maps and photographs provided by him by the CIA, and he was able to see like cranes, and the way they describe their remote viewings are all a little bit different. They kind of see like traces and outlines of things, and he was basically able to see something that he wasn't sure what it was, but it turned out to be a top secret Soviet submarine in this facility he was viewing. So he was right about that, so you got to give him that. But the way they describe a lot of the remote viewing stuff is like that. Like if it's a submarine, they'll see like a crane, or they'll see like I'm trying to think of the exact way that he describes it in the book. He says that like if you saw like an engine, you would think that it was something on a smaller scale, like a hand crank or something. Like you see like, I don't know, little variations of everything, which is also a very convenient way to make up for being wrong about whatever you're looking at. But
thanks for all the gifts, guys.
That's like a very basic rundown of Project Stargate. So now on to the man of the hour.
Man of the hour.
Ingo Swann.
Main man, Swan.
So, again, this guy's name is Ingo Swann. Really dumbass name. I don't, like, the whole time I was reading this book, I couldn't tell if that was his real name, and I don't even think, like, I found an answer for that in any of my research, if that's his real name or if that's a name he adopted when he became a psychic.
That's a good question.
Like, if your name is like Randy Smith, you know, you can't be a really good psychic. You know, like Uri Geller, like I'll trust that guy. But if your name's like Bob Frank, you know,
Bob Summers, I wouldn't trust him.
Yeah, get out of my house. Like,
yeah, dude, Robert Summers is coming over to fucking
find my dead daughter.
Yeah, to find my dead daughter in the walls. Never will.
No. So, like I said, we don't know much about Ingo Swann before anything that, you know, transpires here. But he really didn't start getting into going to these kind of research centers, because he went to one in New York, and before he went to SRI, he was 37 years old before he even started doing any of this. Which, I mean, hey, better late than never, you know?
Seriously. And that's something that was really surprising to me when I saw that.
How old he was?
Yeah. I mean, that's like when it all started. I mean, I can't remember. How old were the other people involved in this? Because I know that...
I don't remember. I'm assuming that Pudduff and... I mean, I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming those guys were probably mid to late 30s. They were both physicists. I mean...
Yeah.
Sure. I don't think they were that old, but...
Well, I didn't know if it was just like a variety from just like different ages there. But hey, Mind of
I'm
Lex...
sure they had a lot of college kids.
Surprising.
Sure they had a lot of college kids, but his main claim to fame before any of the penetration begins, which, goddamn, what a bad name for that book. He says,
it looks at me weird.
He said he was like bored and burnt out by the experiments that they were doing, because they were very scientific in it. So you'd have to do like controls, you know, you would have to do all this annoying actual technical science shit, and you're not just looking at, I don't know, wherever the hell you'd want to look all the time. So he had the idea to look at Jupiter, because at the time, this is in, I believe it was April 1973, he suggested, like, hey, let's look at Jupiter. You know, the one of our probes, one of our probes is going to go by Jupiter, and we're going to get a ton of new information about it that we don't know. So he decided to go there and say what was there, to predict it. And then they could prove that obviously there's no way that this guy would have this knowledge. You know, so it's a pretty good idea. And from his psychic probe he made, he would make drawings while he was there, I guess, or he would dictate them to somebody else. He said that there was like a ring of tiny asteroids around the planet. He predicted like the color. He predicted that it had a hydrogen mantle, that it had storms, winds. He saw a tornado, clouds. Basically, he described what we now know as Jupiter before we even knew that. Because then in 1979, 6 years later, the probe goes by and confirms everything that he said.
Yeah. Which is crazy, that there's like actual documents. If you do enough digging, you can find copies of these actual documents saying all these like online. It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and this is true. Like, they didn't bullshit any of this. Like, they wrote it all down 6 years later. All of it was confirmed. So just, for the rest of the story, I guess I'll say him going to another planet and being able to do that is pretty important. So
yes,
stick that in the back of your mind.
And it's one of those things that, like, let's explain this to you guys just like a little bit. We will probably go over this, or maybe we weren't going to. This was more like the moon stuff. But when they were kind of remote viewing, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's one of those things where normally you couldn't see them, but they could see him, even though he wasn't there.
Well, we'll get into that.
We will get into that. All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll find more about this.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Don't spoil. I know you like spoilers.
I love spoilers. Spoilers are my favorite. Everybody that knows me knows that.
Did we have any questions from any of the audience? Anybody?
Viewers? Anyone have any questions about anything we've talked about?
Yeah, feel free to like ask questions. I mean, we're gonna be going through this, but
yeah, ask questions. Let us know if you have anything to add. If you have any experiences If you have any special gifts. My
Yeah, let us know
fiance
if you have any
has,
special gifts.
my fiance has a special gift. She's all into like the crystals and energies and oneself and all that stuff. She knows. She's got the gifts.
Would you call that a gift or just?
Oh yeah, dude. A lot of mothers have that. It's one of those things like, you know how when you're a kid and you look everywhere in the whole house, every nook and cranny, you clean that house dry trying to find that one thing. You go tell your mom, "Hey mom, I don't know where my Spider-Man action figure is." She's like, "It's in the hamper underneath the dirty sock that has the shoe on it." She knows exactly where that is, dude. She remote views. That's like, it's just a gift.
It's entirely possible, man.
And my fiance has it. I'm 100% certain of it.
Well, maybe she should try to get contracted by the government. Make a
She
little
should
bit of
tell me
money.
where the money is. That's where I want to know. Where the money is, baby. I want to go find it.
So let's get into the first encounter that Ingo Swann has with a man known only as Axelrod.
Axelrod.
Axelrod, baby. So, 2 years after they did this Jupiter probe, it was February 1975, Ingo received a phone call from a high-ranking man in D.C. who he doesn't name. That's the only information he gives about this person, is that he was a very high-ranking, possibly CIA-type contact that he had. So, the man told him that soon a guy named Axelrod would contact him and that it was urgent that he go along with whatever the guy says and not to ask him any questions. And then 4 weeks after this, at 3 o'clock in the morning, he received a phone call from a man calling himself Axelrod. The man told him that he needed to get to Washington, D.C. by noon, and he, again, didn't ask the guy any questions because he was specifically told not to. So they decided to meet at the Smithsonian History Museum by the Big Elephant, which is apparently a big-ass thing that used to be in the Smithsonian. That was like the main central piece. I don't know. I've been to the Smithsonian a couple of times. Maybe it's there. You know, I didn't get accosted by anybody in the Smithsonian, though, like this guy did.
Well, dude, you're not 37 yet.
Not yet. You're right. Also, at this time, he says that he was like really worried about it being the KGB trying to kidnap him. Because like all these guys were convinced that like the Russians were going to try to do something to like take them to Russia to make them like counter agents. But as far as we know, none of that. I keep hitting my pop filter. As far as we know, that never happened. But
So you're telling me that these men showed up and he just did whatever they said, didn't ask any questions?
no, dude, you're going to see like Ingo's just along for the ride, man. Like he'll just say yes to anything.
So yes, man.
Yeah, he says in the book that he decided to go to the museum. Mind you, woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Also, he mentions this ad nauseum in the book. But this guy loves little cigars.
Yep.
And it is like a main point that he has to mention. That's like how, you know, like it's like the old Looney Tunes cartoon. To like get the dog to love you. Like Tom and Jerry, you give him a big steak. Apparently all you need to do to like take Ingo Swann somewhere is give him a pack of cigars.
Dude, that's awesome. That's what you could do with me.
Yeah. Like
I love cigars.
So if I give you a pack of cigars, I could just like take you to an underground bunker.
Well, dude,
it's
it's true for you too if you think about it, dude. Cigars are easy. I gave you a Romeo and Julieta, and you came instantly after basic training to York, Maine.
Damn, you got me there.
Isn't that crazy?
Maybe it's just something about cigars.
Dude, it's something about cigars.
But so yeah, so this guy decided, he's like, hey man, like if these people don't show up, if I'm being hoaxed, whatever. I like the rocks and the minerals. He states this in the book. He loved the rock and mineral exhibit of the Smithsonian. So he's like, whatever. I'll take the Airbus down there to DC because at the time he lives in New York, and just hang out, right? But yeah, he does talk about the rocks and minerals a lot too. This guy gets caught up in like weird ass details of his own story.
Some mumblings. He just thinks out loud a lot in that book.
Yeah, and just lets his hand keep going.
Yeah.
So at noon, he's at the elephant, and a man comes up behind him and addresses him by name and hands him a card that tells him not to speak, not to ask any questions, and Swan, of course, being the submissive man he is like, okay. He also describes this man and another man in extreme detail in the book. He noticed that this man that approached him had green eyes and looked like the prototypical jarhead Marine, right?
Yep.
You can assume crew cut, probably 6 foot tall, normal looking soldier, right?
Yeah, thick neck.
Yeah. So he then noticed that there was 2 of them, like I said, that looked exactly alike. They could have been twins, he said. So then they pull out a photo of Swan, compare it to him, yada yada, and convince him to come with them in the car. Because from his point of view, yeah, these are the guys, right? Nobody just comes up to you and holds up a photo of you to you. Hey, yeah, it's him. Come on.
This is the guy. It's like, yeah.
So then they took him into a nondescript car, which was driven by a woman who refused to look at Swan, which he says is probably for some secrecy. But if you've seen the thumbnail, I probably wouldn't take too many peeks at him either. The man sat on opposite sides of him and then handed him another card, because they just have all these little cue cards that tell you what to do, that told him, again, not to say anything. They had to travel a little ways. And then another card that said they had to frisk him. Okay. And then, again, this is another weird thing that he says in the book. He describes how they frisked him. These 2 handsome Marine men. He said they checked him all over. They then unzipped his pants and then peeked into his underwear. So, at that point, At that point, I don't think I would think that I'm going to a cool place. You know. I
know, it's just like, they're like, this is the guy. Get in the van. Oh, unzip your fly. It's like,
now take your pants off.
2 muscular Marines in there trying to sink and take your pants off. I would not feel safe. I would not feel safe.
So Swan thinks that they're going to the CIA headquarters, but they zoomed right past it. He then noticed that they were heading towards a heliport. Then the twins, again, handed him another card, because they refused to speak, that said they had to bag his head so he couldn't see anything. But before they did, they offered him a sandwich, which he eats a lot of sandwiches, again, in this story too, that are just offered to him by people.
After, like, violating his body.
Yeah, so they look at it.
Sandwich.
Yeah, they look at his cock and balls, and then they give him, like, a tuna sandwich and tell him that he has to have his head bagged, basically.
Dude, that sounds like the story of, like, a wife murdering her husband.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way he tells it, because at first he's like, I think it might be the KGB. And now you got dudes peeking in your pants, giving you sandwiches, and telling you they're going to bag your head and taking you to a helicopter. You're like, nah, this is cool. This isn't. This can't be the KGB.
Dude, I would be so uncomfortable.
So they took about a half-hour helicopter ride, and then he says, obviously he doesn't have a lot of descriptors for this because he's bagged and tagged. They take then a quick elevator ride down to what he believed was deep underground, which obviously makes sense. Or since he couldn't see where he was going and they landed, I don't know why he wouldn't assume it's a building that they could have landed on, but whatever. This is his story. So then they take him down a hallway and put him in this room with a man who, when they remove the hood, he assumes is Mr. Axelrod. So he also mentions, again, in the book, that when they take the hood off him, his eyes are watering. And he talks about being he talks about being terrified and that his eyes were watering.
Oh, so Ingo Swann's eyes were watering, not Mr. Axelrod.
No. Yeah, Ingo's. So
okay.
Ingo was crying, basically, at this point.
He's probably scared to death, guy.
That's what he says. He was like, I was scared, my eyes were watering when they took the hood. Like, so you were crying, is what you're saying.
Yes.
But
hey,
we don't get a lot of
10K likes. Guys, keep it coming. We appreciate it.
So we don't get a lot of descriptors of Mr. Axelrod from Ingo to paint a picture of what he looks like. But he described him as a jolly guy with kindly eyes, and he was in a dark green jumpsuit. He also, the way he does describe him is that he looked like some guy that he used to know.
Just like a familiar face?
No, well, he said just physically, like he just resembled a lot this guy he knew. Which if you're writing a book or any kind of medium that's not visual, don't fucking tell me that he looks like your buddy Jeff. Because I don't know what he looks like either. Like, that doesn't help me picture this, but they chat for a while. Swan obviously knows why he's there. They probably want him to look at something. They offer him $1,000 a day to do this research, which obviously is a lot of money back then. It's still a lot of money now, but so he's like giddy at this. Like, he mentions it so many times again. He's like, I just didn't want to mess anything up. I didn't want to lose on the $1,000. I needed it really badly because obviously being a psychic pays nothing.
Yeah.
So he said they were going to do some experiments, and he specifically asked Swan not to tell anybody what they were going to do for at least 10 years, which is kind of arbitrary to me, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's when around that time frame was when a lot of that information came out and was verified anyways, or debunked.
Yeah. So and Swan again says that he would go to like rich and like powerful people's houses and do stuff, and he would have to sign NDAs. So it wasn't really that out of the ordinary for him to do this.
Right.
So now in this room that Swan is in underground, he doesn't really explain much about the base or whatever it might be, but the room that they're in had a sub-room attached to it that served as a bedroom. It had a bed, you know, all those accoutrements, and then the place also had a gym. And while he's here, he didn't see a single other person except these two twins and Axelrod. So it was stated to him, you know, you can sleep in this bed. When we're not doing this stuff, there's a gym that you can go to. And they also, of course, to keep him there, keep him good, they gave him his favorite cigars. Because, of course. So then they kind of get into talking about his experiences, him and Axelrod. They talk about when he worked at the American Society of Psychic Research in New York. About, you know, his first kind of remote viewing experiences, which kind of boiled down to him being in a room, witnessing a woman in an orange dress, I think it was, walking outside, and then when they ran outside, they saw like a woman in an orange dress like get on a bus or something. Which to me, if you're in goddamn New York, how crazy is it to say that you see a woman in a colored dress outside? But
I don't know, who knows, dude. Well, maybe, I mean, just having not seen anybody.
What do you mean?
Like you said, he didn't see a single person when he got there, right?
No, they were just in a room predicting what was outside.
Oh.
And he said he saw a woman in an orange dress, and then they went out there and saw it. But they also, one of the main things that they did was do these weather remote viewing things, because obviously they didn't have the internet and all this shit that we have now. So they would say, hey, tell me what it's like in Cincinnati. And then Swan would say, it's raining, it's shitty, it's one of the worst cities in the entire planet. Then they would call Cincinnati and they would say, hey, is it raining? They would say, yeah. They would say, does your city suck dick? And they would say, yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah, it's really terrible here.
It's horrible.
They'd say, yeah, you got it. So those were like the main things. He talks about that for a while. That was like one of the main things they would do, is because they could just call the weather department, I don't know, the weather meteorologists in that city and figure out if they were right or wrong, which I don't know if that was successful, but apparently it was successful enough that Axelrod knew about this when Swan was telling him about it.
Right.
So then they talk about Jupiter. They finally get to the topic of looking at planets and how when you remote view, you use coordinates like longitudes and latitudes, which seems weird because if it's a psychic thing, how can it apply to splitting up the globe, right?
Right.
But according to Ingo, that's precisely why it works, because any psychic creature in the universe, any space conscious or human consciousness, will figure out a way to split up a globe by lines. So that's why doing coordinates works, apparently.
Right.
Even though the numbers wouldn't be the same. I don't know. That's just how he says it. He says him and Jacques Vallée actually came up with that together, which is wild. Jacques Vallée, if you don't know, is like one of the most respected, famous UFO researchers of all time. So, kind of wild he got a name drop in this, but
Boom, we're calling you out, buddy. Give me a shout out.
I think he's dead. Actually, I don't think he's. He might have been on Rogan a few years ago, actually.
Who knows, man? Well, we're shouting out his family.
So then Axelrod finally breaches the topic. What do you know about the moon? And Ingo says, everything, basically. Like, we've been to the moon. I don't give a shit about looking at the moon. Like, it's not going to give me any data. What am I going to do? Go to the moon and say, hey, it's gray, there's dust and nothing? Like, people already know that shit. Like, it's not good for any kind of research.
But that's what Axelrod wanted to do anyways. He wanted to really look at that shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's why he asks him. And then he gives him a list of coordinates and asks him if he knows a man named George Leonard. And Ingo's like, no, I don't know who the hell that is. Axelrod's like, cool. But it was just weird. He asked him if he knew this one specific guy who Ingo was like, what the hell does this guy have to do with anything at all? So then we get into a kind of a weird part before the experiment begins, more of levity, I guess, on the part of Ingo Swann. They had a gym, and he decides in the book to, whatever, there's nothing else to do. It's a good excuse to go to the gym to see if I can find anybody else. This place is like a goddamn ghost town. So they let him go to the gym. He's accompanied by the two marine-looking twins. And like I wrote here in the outline, I mean, he's like enamored with these guys in the book. He describes them specifically as built like brick shithouses. Mind you, they're in the locker room of the gym changing. He said that they started out their workout by doing hundreds of push-ups each. And then while he was working out, while they were all in the gym together, they started like gaslighting him. Like, they started like making fun of him a little bit, because he was like lifting weights and they were like, hey, are you sure you're okay? Like, do you think you can lift that much? Like, asking him questions like that.
Burning him.
But he did notice eventually that these guys did look a little bit different, so they weren't twins, but still eerily similar in some kind of uncanny valley type way, right?
Right.
So then him and Axelrod talk over a nice steak dinner. Next day, we're talking about the moon, baby.
The moon, baby.
What do we got? We got anybody in chat? I got to take a quick break before we get into the moon.
Yeah, let's ask. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about these two muscular brick shithouse twin Marines? Would you guys get in the car with them? Would you guys go through all this? After all your years of experience with the moon, would you trust this guy to really dig deep into your mind to remote view these places and these coordinates you want to check out? It's a lot of questions there. I don't know, Sam, what do you think? Like, would you have made it like up to this far? Would you have taken the gaslighting from the Marines in the gym?
Yeah, so let's take it to like our experience in this situation. So if all of this shit happened to me, and they were like, offered me $1,000 a day, you have to sit in this underground base and like do all this weird shit and like get back talk from these weird twin guys. I mean, yeah, probably. Fuck it. Like $1,000 to basically probably just look at nothing.
I go to work for much less.
Of course. Yeah, exactly.
Seriously. So I was having a conversation like that. We won't get too far into it. But obviously, guys, let us know. I don't want to mispronounce your name. I appreciate you sending all these likes out there to us. But would you do it? Would you follow through with this stuff? Let us know in the chat. By the way, Sam, Mind of Lexi in the chat there started a competition, and she said 10K likes, I have to shave my beard. 12K likes, you have to shave yours. They'll have to make it past Morgan probably, but we're getting pretty close.
To 12K likes?
Yeah, 12K.
Tell you what, if we get to 500 subs, I'll do it.
500 subs on the YouTube. Share this with all your friends. Go over to YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube. We need to see you on there.
Okay, hold on a second.
Hey, but we appreciate all the roses and the likes, though. We love those. You
I'm
leaving?
gonna grab something.
Sam's gonna leave, so I'm gonna talk. All right, guys. So you tell me, have any of you guys had any of these experiences? Because I want to know. I know there's only 3 people in here, so share this with your friends. We got to spread the news out. We got to get some more people in here. But I've personally been really interested in astral projection and remote viewing lately. I'd love to kind of get into that type of stuff, but I know it's a lot of you got to have a lot of oneness and a lot of clarity and be really clear of all negative energies. There's a lot of precautions that go into this stuff because dabbling into the spiritual world and deep into your brain and all that type of stuff. It's 12K likes, everybody. We just got it. So Sam has to shave his face.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's spirits that can come in you when you leave yourself. So you got to be careful when dabbling with this stuff.
What the hell is that?
Astral projection and remote viewing, like leaving yourself. I know it's a little bit different than what Ingo Swann did, but he was just able to see. Oh, look, that person that's been liking said their fingers hurt now. They've been killing it for us. We appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate
if you haven't already, give us a follow. Subscribe to us here on TikTok, over to our YouTube. We are a growing podcast. We're about to be everywhere. We got some trivia nights coming up. We're going to be talking about comic book stuff. Going to just be talking about conspiracies and fun topics. Like we're going to be talking about the moon, some modern superheroes with some super abilities. Some really cool stuff coming up here. We're going to have some guests. It's Ryan, by the way, Adam's friend. Well, we appreciate you, Ryan. You're not doing too good in fantasy, though. But yeah, so back to Ingo Swann. We don't really have anybody in the chat other than talking about how sore their fingers are, which we do appreciate that you went through that pain for us there, Ryan.
Hey, what's up, Safer? Okay. So.
Oh, we got some YouTube talkers?
Yep, back to the Swan. Okay. So now we're on to the day of him looking at the moon. We finally got there, folks. An hour in, and we're going to talk about Ingo Swann looking at the moon.
It's at the moon.
So early in the morning, they began the experiment with Axel giving him information, like what cycle the moon was in, which again, I don't understand why that matters, really, but hey, Ingo's the master, right? So then he gets very, I don't know, bitchy with Axel. He's like, don't talk to me while I'm doing this. I'm going to talk to myself like a nut job and ask myself questions. Don't answer me. Though throughout this entire experience, Axel talks goddamn nonstop. And Swan just like is cool with it for some reason. So he explains his process to getting to the moon would be to shoot himself to the sun not physically, psychically, and then try to come back to Earth and catch the moon. Sounds right, I guess.
Astral projection.
That's apparently how you do it. You got to shoot yourself to the moon. So he lands on the moon. We got touchdown. Okay, they're in deep to the experiment now. Axel gives him the first coordinate, and the way that he goes to the coordinate, he describes it's like if you're in like a convertible going like 1,000 miles per hour. It's like just everything's rushing past you. Like you physically move to it. You don't like teleport. So this first location, he said it was dark. Then it became like a little bit lighter to his eyes. He said he was on a cliff and that he could see what looked like dunes ahead of him. Right?
Yep.
And so then he starts asking himself this out loud, mind you. He's like, I see dunes. I don't really get what I see tractor tread marks, what like machinery looking marks on the ground. And then he said that the cliff he was standing on looked like obsidian, not like any kind of moon rock, right?
Right.
So Axel's like, cool, whatever. Next coordinate. We got to hurry up here, Axel. Quit wasting my goddamn time. So the next one they go to kind of shook Swan a little bit. They actually took a break at this point because he thought that what he was looking at couldn't have been the moon. He thought he was messing up the experiment. He was going to lose out on his money because what he's looking at is not what he thinks the moon should look like. Right. It's not gray and dusty or anything like that. It's all like dunes and obsidian rocks, like the dark black, type looking rock. So he's like apologizing to Axel, and he's like, no, like don't apologize. Let's just get back to it. Like just trust yourself. Like I'm sure you're looking at what you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
So then they go back to, I believe, what was that coordinate that they had stopped on. So then what he describes is that he is in a dark crater. He said he saw 2 opposite rows of what looked like stadium lights, like you would see in like a football stadium or like a baseball field, right?
Right.
And they were giving off green light that was making the air kind of hazy with dust, which again should not be able to happen on the moon because there's no atmosphere, there's no wind, none of that. So again, he apologizes to Axel, and then like throws a shit fit at this point, and it's like breaking stuff in the room, and Axel's like, dude, it's cool, like no, just please, for the love of God, quit doing this, quit freaking out about this. So he starts asking Axelrod like why the hell he's seeing this shit, like there can't be lights on the moon, can there? Like that doesn't happen. Like are the Russians doing this?
Right.
So
well, I mean,
no, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, he realized the haze and stuff like that was just dust, obviously, right?
Yeah. So he goes back actually and sees like the lights and measures them to be about 100 foot high, and then he saw a tower the size of the Secretariat. I'm an idiot. I should have looked up how to say this. A building in New York that's around like the UN complex apparently, which is where Ingo had worked when he was younger. So a giant tower is now what he's seeing in this area as well.
So things that look obviously like there's potentially
built.
light there, they're built, manufactured items.
Yeah. Yes. Something giving off light, towers giving off light, and then just a tower the size of a skyscraper for the most part.
Like the biggest question, I mean, that I would have, and obviously like that Swan had at this point was, how the hell did that shit get there? How did the U.S. or Russia even put it there? Like
right. And that's his next question. He asks Axel how the equipment got there. Like the U.S. and the Russians can't have this technology to get this shit here, because it would take so many launches of the technology they had at the time to put all of that equipment on the moon. It would take forever, right?
Right, and shortly after that, he starts realizing that, like, that's why they're there. Like, they're there to study this shit and figure out what's there and why, and the fact that there are aliens on the moon and all this stuff, like, it makes him have, like, a mental, emotional breakdown. Dude starts crying.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, like...
He really starts crying.
Yeah, he realizes, he's like, well, somebody else must have put this here. And you're right, he does. He starts breaking down crying, like freaking out. And then he asks Axel, of course, like, why don't we, like why don't they just send another mission to the moon? Why the hell is he even here doing this? Like, even Axel at this, or even Swan at this point notices, like, why the fuck are you using me? Like, we can go to the moon.
That's like, we've been there.
And then again, he realizes maybe the reason we have stopped at this point, I think, was the year in 1975, or maybe the year before, where we sent the last manned mission to the moon. So it's then when he realizes, like, oh shit, are there things on the moon that have told you not to come back to the moon?
Right.
And
so, oh my God, that's so crazy to think about. It's
and also like, just real quick, if it's like confusing while we're telling this that all of this is coming from Axel's, I know it says, or from Swan's perspective, it's because Axel doesn't answer questions. He just lets Swan talk to himself, and then just kind of nods or does whatever. But anyways, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say we got someone in the chat here saying that, like, he's talking about what he thinks aliens look like that they look like us, that they're humanoids, stuff like that. I can't remember, Sam, or I don't want to spoil anything, maybe if I'm wrong or right, but does he get into that at all?
Oh, he gets into that, and I'm looking at the hold on. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the TikTok chat, and what's this guy's name? Raiju, whatever.
Yeah, it's Ryan. It's his real name.
Yeah, Ryan, you might be spot on, my friend. He does get into this. So Swan then again figures out like that's why we're all being used like this. That's why the Russians at the time supposedly were also doing this, was to figure out what the fuck is happening on the moon, right? So big day for Ingo, finding out that there's creatures on the moon and that the US government apparently needs him to look at these because they, with all their power, can't even get close. Right. So he then goes in the other room and then falls asleep. Like immediately. He's had too much. He just goes and like shuts off.
Gets a full 6 hours.
Yeah. So then the next day they begin the experiment again. And then this is where we get the details of what Ingo Swann claims that he saw on the moon. He said he saw towers, machinery, buildings, bridges, domes, small saucers and airfields.
UFOs.
Yeah, and in like caves and inlets and whatnot. He saw long tubes and tractor-like things. He says long tubes. I think I'm picturing more like pipelines probably is what he was seeing, or water lines, probably like utility lines.
Yeah, probably because he talks about like the tractor-like things and what look like roads and obelisks and stuff like that. So that would make sense.
Yeah. So he said like the domes had platforms and there was like houses. What it sounds like he's describing is some kind of moon mining operation. To me, at least.
So it's probably to get like, I mean, yes and no. Like, obviously, there's got to be something on the moon. You know, there's got to be some type of mineral on there if they're actually just mining that. Because from the way it sounds, it doesn't sound like it's like a lush environment where things are like living large scale. It sounds like something they're literally just there to mine. Yeah,
he doesn't say that there's like, it's weird because he seems to, even in these visions, say that the moon is like inhospitable. They have like domes and whatnot, but he also says that there's an atmosphere that, you know, he can see dunes and evidence of like wind and whatnot.
That's true. Yeah, right.
But it's just like strange to me that there would be no life even though there's this atmosphere, but whatever, doesn't really matter.
Well, there is, as we'll find out soon, life.
We will. And like I said, he sees these domes, he sees these houses, so he goes towards one of the houses to investigate. And what he sees in the house is what appears to be people doing something, just working, doing whatever the hell they're doing. He said they all looked like human grown men and that they were all completely butt-ass naked for whatever reason. And while they were looking at him, or while he was looking at them, he noticed they started like nudging each other and like, hey, get a load of this. Like, do you see this like ghost outside of the door?
Yeah.
And they started pointing at him. Mind
you,
he
became excited though when they saw him.
Yeah, they were like nudging each other like, get a load of this. Like, do you see this nerd like looking at us?
Yeah, look at this guy.
Which is wild because that means that they can see him in his psychic form. They can see his psychic energy.
Yep.
Which is...
See, that's because aliens, these humanoids, whatever they are, they're at a different frequency than they are. They're at a higher dimension.
Yeah, and this is like Ingo's whole thing really with this book is that the U.S. government in some form or fashion is trying to limit the psychic power of human beings because... Oh,
that's the calcification of the pineal gland, dude. That's what
possibly.
That's like that whole fluoride conspiracy. And because there's tons, not to get super off topic, but when I kind of refer to all like these declassified government documents they're buried, but if you're looking for them, you can find them type deal. They have a lot of stuff having to do with a lot of different psychic abilities, energies, being able to sift through walls. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff that the government has found out, done large scale, heavily funded testing on, you know, that we just don't know about, you know, so it's pretty crazy to take that into account.
Yeah. I mean, it's all like pretty wild because what he says, if you ever do read the book, specifically in the last portion of the book, he repeats himself a lot. He will make a point in like 3 paragraphs, right? And then he will stretch all of that into a chapter somehow, which is like, this guy must have been amazing at school. He must have been able to write a paper with the best of them. Like, just to stretch a small portion into everything. Like,
I can stretch a paper that one time.
Oh, I know you can, dude. The military makes you an expert at it. Dude, I did something really goddamn stupid one time. We're going to take a quick detour here.
Yes.
Oh, God. I don't even know if I should actually say what I did, but
Do it.
let's just say I made a mistake while I was at a training thing one day. We were going to a range, and like one of my buddies had drove there in his civilian vehicle. So I get in the car and we loaded our rifles into the car. And apparently I was like, ooh, don't do that. And probably could have got away with it when we pulled in, except I don't even know what the hell this guy's, maybe he was like a training NCO. I think he was an E8 at the time. This huge dickhead that I hated. I'm not going to say his name, but he saw us getting out of the car and then told my squad leader, who was a massive fucking douchebag. And so I had to write like a 2,000 word thing about what I did wrong.
Oh, I hate that.
That was like my punishment. Dude, your boy, papers are simple to me. I wrote that thing in like an hour and a half, just like sitting at the range on my phone. Like, I just kept writing like what I did was wrong and this is why, and I would never do it again. And I just said that every different kind of way I could possibly think.
Oh my Lord.
Like that.
Dude, remember when I got in trouble for, I forget what it was in basic training, dude, and I had to write that like 5,000 word fucking piece of paper, and like the first like 3 or 4 pages were like legitimate, and then I just told a story. I just told a bunch of scenarios of how my actions would get me killed if we were like downrange, or like if we were going through the jungle and I was being complacent.
That's actually funny you mentioned that, because I'm pretty sure that's where I got my idea from.
Really?
It was directly from you, because that's exactly what I did too. I kept making up scenarios of why what I did could have like gone wrong and just telling stories about what could have transpired from there. But it's also funny that me and you even mentioned this, because maybe Ingo was a shitty soldier like we were, because he was in the army during Korea.
That's right.
Apparently, which I only found from like an obituary about him. He never really mentions it, but he was in the army for 3 years, so maybe he was a shitbag. And
maybe this is the product of that, and it's just a giant story and not even real.
Possibly. I mean, again,
Imagine.
I guarantee you everybody else is like putting on their uniforms, like going out to like do drill and whatnot, and Ingo's like just has like ping pong balls taped over his eyes and like just red light on his face, like trying to look at like Saturn.
Oh my God, imagine that.
And his like NCOs are like, dude, get the fuck up. Like, what are you doing? Like,
it's either that or he was like a legit good soldier and they used him to like flank the enemies downrange.
No, dude. If you turn like a page or two of this book, you know this guy was not very popular at
he wasn't
anything.
No.
Even in a lot of these scenarios he mentions, like at SRI and these different, like, people seem to be annoyed by him all the time.
All the time.
Like when the whole Jupiter thing happened, they were like, dude, come on, like, shut up, Ingo. Like, we're not doing that. But so back to the story, a little sidetrack, but whatever.
So just to brief it all up for you guys, we just barely, if you're just joining us now, we just talked about how Ingo Swann, in his kind of spiritual form, astral projected, remote viewed himself onto the moon, saw a bunch of lights, green lights, saw houses, obelisk structures, flying saucers, parked in an airfield. And he saw these 2 butt-ass naked humanoid men staring at him and get all excited. So, and here we are. We're back.
Yeah. So that's what Axel said, and this is where his times of viewing the moon end. Okay. So he comes out of I don't even know. Again, he doesn't get into these kind of details. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that when Ingo does these remote viewings of anything, when you imagine remote viewing, Jeff, I know you probably know the answer now, but when you would imagine it, would you not imagine that you would go into some kind of trance while you're asleep or something? You would shut your eyes and like
Well, so
go.
that's what I thought. So real quick before I answer that, we do have Ryan here again in the chat. Thank you, Ryan, for being with us like this. He's saying, what if Area 51 is what he saw, though?
It's entirely possible.
It is entirely possible. That's a good point you brought up there, man.
That's a good point. The only thing is, I don't think that they would have aliens just in little houses out in the desert. Though we will get into, I say that, but we will do an episode one day on the tall whites and the experiences of this man who I forget what his name is. Damn, I forget what his name is. Anyways, this other guy, we'll go into him one day. Jeff, we got to do a deep dive on this dude.
Yes, I would love that.
He wrote a series of books, which at first he claimed were science fiction, but then he later claimed were actually real, about his experiences in the Air Force, where he was a liaison with underground alien bases in the desert.
Dude, that's sweet.
It's fascinating shit, dude. Like, if it's true or not, it's such a good story. So we'll do that maybe in a couple months or whatever.
But back to what Sam was asking me, anyways. I
ask you. Oh yeah.
About being in like a trance. So like before I read into this, when we talked about this a little bit, and I tried to jump the gun and say I knew what you were talking about with astral projection. Those are the two big differences between these. Is remote viewing is just an ability that maybe all of us could have, maybe some people have, type deal, but Ingo Swann is one of those guys that he was able just to project himself to this other place while still being fully aware. He could take himself out of that. He could hear questions from Axelrod. He was able to do all these things, where in astral projection, you literally leave your body.
Yeah, see, I think he was just doing I think he was just doing straight up viewing, almost just looking through a portal in a way.
Right.
But so,
but yes and no, because these humanoids saw him. So there's no way, it's tough.
I don't know if they just saw his face looking through nothing at him, or.
Well, I don't think it's something like that. I think it's something you can see your energy type thing.
Yeah, like an aura.
Yeah, they are advanced enough to be able to see that stuff to where we can't. So maybe how you said, like a ghost. Maybe it is like a ghost, some type of energy force that they are able to comprehend.
Right.
So, but no, I didn't. You could just not be in a trance.
Yeah, which was just the wild part to me, that he would just do this eyes wide open, looking at the moon. But so he then tells Axel, he's I think they were psychic. He believed that they were telepathic. They could see him and read his thoughts, which
that coincides with a lot of extraterrestrial stories. though.
Yeah, that they go into your head and whatnot. You'll find the more we do series is about aliens and whatnot. When we talk about these, I guess I would consider this an alien, more of a high strangeness kind of story, but it is so an alien story. A lot of them line up, and who knows if that's just they've read this book and now they've put this into their own lie, or if this is really just all of these people collectively meeting the same entities. You know what I mean?
It could be. I mean, what if they're just the closest ones that we always run into? But I mean, at the same time, jumping back into astral projection stuff a little bit, people do this from their house. They just train their minds and their bodies, and they're healthy enough and clean enough spiritually and all that other stuff to do this. And people have gone to the moon. They've traveled to different parts of the United States, the world. They've gone into the pyramids of Giza, underground. There's all these different stories that you can never be 100% sure, because how can you prove to someone that you did that, especially if you're astral projecting? But Ryan says real quick, people do have the ability to see auras, especially if they're mediums. But mediums kind of fall into that psychic abilities, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what a medium is.
Right, yeah. So it's the same. It's not the same type of thing, but same type of gift or ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think mediums are more... I don't know. I don't know how to put this into words, but mediums are more people, I guess, that just do see auras and that feel ghosts. Right. That feel the presence of shit, But so Axelrod, this is where his time with, or Swan, this is where his time is dwindling down here, because he tells Axel, what he saw. He believed they were telepathic. Axel also seemed to have already known this. He told them, this experiment's over. Like, thank you for your time. We got the information that we needed. They had a nice dinner together, and then they returned him the way he came in. They bagged his head and sent him out with the twins, and they dropped him off at a train station. And then for the next few months, he said he was like really anxious and worried that these humanoids that saw him would be able to track him through his psychic signature and show up and kill him. I don't know why he thought that they would kill him, but that's just what he said.
Right.
And he also obviously didn't tell anybody about this, let alone the 10-year thing. I mean, at the time, he was like, I'm a fucking psycho. Like, if I tell anybody this, that I saw aliens on the moon, they're going to think I'm a crazy person.
No one would believe him. Because he can't, obviously, like, going back deeper, obviously, like, they bagged him and they took him. They can't even tell him where he went.
Yeah.
I don't know where I went or who these two twin Marines were, but they brought me there and I, eyes opened, saw the moon.
Yeah, so it's like he has no evidence, but he does try to make evidence. He tries to recreate some of the sketches that he made for Axelrod during the event, and then he put them in a safe deposit box, he says in the book, and he didn't think they would be safe in his apartment, and he says that he would come back to his apartment and it would look like somebody ransacked it.
Yep.
But he never says, it's a very confusing part of the book, he says he thought they would, he's like, I thought they would be safe in the safety deposit box. But then he never says that they got taken or anything. But then they apparently are gone. But he never says they're gone. I don't know, it's a very confusing way that he ends his first encounter by explaining it. He says he made these drawings, but, like, do you have them? Because you never said they got taken. I don't know.
That's true.
And then, like we said earlier, when Axel asked him about this guy named George Leonard, he then receives a book in the mail. But a book authored by a man named George Leonard, called Someone Else is on the Moon, which was a book released in 1976. Really, it just talks about pictures of the moon. It's kind of an insane book. I didn't read it. I couldn't find a copy of it. But it's basically just this guy took every single publicly available photo that NASA had of the moon and just scrubbed all of it, looking for whatever he could find. And the book just has, like, pinpoints of lights. And I'll actually bring up here.
So this is the point, guys. If you're hanging out with us in the chat, if you have the ability to go on YouTube as well, jump over to the YouTube. Sam's going to pull up some moon photos here for us.
Let's look at the moon real quick, folks.
Let's look at the moon, guys.
I couldn't find the specific, maybe it's just bad research on my part. I couldn't find the specific ones he mentions in the book, because he does mention specific photos. But when I did search, he specifically mentions a photo, 1971 NASA photo, 71H781, and damn, I don't think I'm going to get these pictures any bigger. God damn it. Okay.
I believe in you. We all believe in you here in the chat.
So we got pictures of the moon here, if you can see them, folks. These are the pictures that he put in his book, talking about a glass dome. Again, I can't... Damn it. It's always a website like this, too, that you get the best information from.
Oh, no, go back and right-click.
Right-click?
Yeah, I think, like, to pull, like, the menu on it.
Yeah.
And see if you can just open it in its own page.
No, because it's a link. But, anyways.
Well, no, you should be able to, though. Like, it may be in the drop-down.
I think we'll look into these photos deeper on, like, Monday, if you'd like.
So, Sam, real quick, while you are pulling that up, I know we're all seeing this stuff right now, but Ryan had another good point. He's like, the twin Marines could be the Men in Black in disguise, which there are videos of Men in Black people coming and finding people, that have had alien experiences.
Well, it's also funny that you mentioned that, Ryan, because he mentions that himself many times in the book, that he is aware of the Men in Black phenomenon, because that reached its peak, and again, something we're going to cover, the Mothman Prophecies book by John Keel, about the Mothman in Point Pleasant, was one of the most highly active Men in Black scenarios ever. And I'm not I don't know if they ever mention each other, but there's no way John Keel, the man who wrote that book and investigated Mothman, and Ingo didn't know each other. But
There's no
so
way.
he does mention the Men in Black, and he does say that these guys wore black outfits sometimes, and that's what he thought of. He's like, these guys look like Men in Black, except they looked a little bit too human to him, but that's also because maybe he spent too much time with them. You know, who knows? But
it could be one of those weird phenomena. I forget what that's called. That's like when something looks close enough to be human, but it's slightly off.
the uncanny valley.
Tell. Yes. There it is. Could be something like that.
So this one isn't this experience, because he has like 3 of these in the book. This one isn't as important, and it's kind
This
of
is
a
a
waste of
supermarket
time.
one, right?
Yeah, this is the lady that he meets. Okay, this is interesting though. Okay, so we're gone from the moon. I think, like I said, if you want to, on Monday we could look at moon pictures on YouTube together.
Let's look on moon stuff.
So in August 1976, this is about a year later, he traveled from SRI, which is a Stanford Research Institute in, goddamn, I forget where Stanford is. It doesn't matter. I think it's near San Francisco, maybe. But so he travels
I'm thinking of something different. I thought it was in Connecticut.
No, Stanford's in California.
Yeah, I know. I was dumb for a minute.
So he travels to LA to stay at a friend's house, who, again, he sucks at describing people. The only descriptor he gives of his friend Conrad is that he is an old soul. So, and then they had 2 women with them. One was a psychologist, and another one a psychic. So just a bunch of loopy people in the 70s hanging out together. They decided to make dinner one night, and Conrad and Ingo went to a supermarket in Hollywood in order to get fresh produce. I forget exactly what he said they were making. Not that it even matters at all, but
It was something to do with artichokes.
Yeah, so they split up, and he goes to get artichokes, right?
Yeah.
This is where he first sees this woman. So he sees a woman also getting artichokes. He described her as... this is just kind of weird the way he describes this lady, but I got this like verbatim from the book. He describes her as notable, and not just for her excess female physical endowments. Like she had big tits. I don't know why he didn't just say that. But for the fact that they were barely covered. So she was notable because she was like wearing almost no clothes, which, yeah, sure, dude. He said she had like a halter top with yellow polka dots, and she had short shorts that barely covered her up. She also had like 8-inch platform heels on, which made her look insanely tall. And she had long black hair. He couldn't see her eyes because she had like these purple sunglasses on. But he's like infatuated.
That sounds like a honeypot to me. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, granted, this is LA and Hollywood specifically in the 70s, so I don't know. But so he moved. He then says that instead of just saying in the book that he went to go get an artichoke, which was why he was there, he said he moved up to get closer to her to appreciate her near naked breasts more.
This guy was a psycho.
Yeah, is what he says in the book. I mean, my boy's just trying to sneak a peek. So then he became terrified. His hair on his neck stood on end. He got like a cold chill and like that fright shock of panic in his system, which he attributes to something we'll get into. But I think he was just nervous to talk to a woman.
I think so too.
You know,
Ryan thinks she's just a fun time lady.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee if he would have taken that artichoke money and, handed it off to her, he probably could have,
gotten stabbed in the alley afterwards.
Yeah. Oh shit! I was gonna say something, but I don't know if I want to say that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he could have investigated her craters.
Hey, real quick, Sam, if you want to keep talking, I have to get up really fast. My phone's about to die. I want to plug that thing in real quick. I just gotta get my charger. So if you want to talk for a minute, you want to continue on, I'll jump back on. Guys, I know that I'm not gonna be on the stream, but listen to Sam's beautiful voice while I'm away.
So. Yeah, we're at this point where he is just like infatuated with this lady. I don't know why the hell his thing just went black. Let's get him out of here.
I stepped on the cord to my light.
Yeah. Okay, well, doesn't matter on the show now. So, hold on, I just lost my place here, folks. So, when all this stuff happens, when he gets terrified and, like, panicked of this woman, his first instinct of why he's so afraid is because she has to be an extraterrestrial. Like, he just knows that this woman is an alien. And then when he turns around to get the hell out of there, he said he noticed at the end of the aisle was one of the twins, which made him feel even worse. Because if these guys are here, and of course he looked around and the other twin was there as well, then he knew he stumbled into a place he should not have been, right? He said that instead of looking more militaristic, the guys were wearing like black jeans, tops, whatever, just kind of all in black, which again leads to the Men in Black thing. So then he just gets the hell out of there, doesn't say anything to the twins, and when he gets in the car with his buddy, he says, like, hey, wait a second, I want you to take a look at something. Then the lady walks out, and he's like, what do you think of her? And any person would probably be like, oh, she's hot, whatever, she's a woman. And this dude, without a second thought, is like, oh, she's an alien. So, yeah, Ingo's hanging out with some weird fucking people. Because then later in the night, they hang out with these two ladies. They're eating the artichoke, which I don't even think they're eating the artichoke meal. I don't think he even bought the artichokes. But they're talking about this experience, and these friends of his tell him that there's aliens everywhere, walking around, like, in our presence at all times. So I thought that was kind of strange, but that's kind of where he leaves that. And then fast forwards to a few days later when he went back to New York, still kind of freaked out about this whole thing, freaked out about this lady he saw. He received a call from a woman who said that a friend wanted to speak to him on another line and that he had to be in Grand Central Station by 7:30. She told him to go to the information box and then just wait until probably the weird-ass twins are going to show up, right? So he waited, got a cup of coffee, and then saw one of the twins dressed up like a vagrant, like dressed up like a homeless person. And then he follows the twin, which takes him to a telephone booth in the station. When they go into the station, the twin then goes into, when they get to the phone booth, the twin goes in, dials the phone, and then puts the phone on the top of the box, and then Ingo goes in after him, and who's on the line but Mr. Axelrod. Axelrod, again, told him not to say anything. I'm just going to ask you questions. Just answer my questions. Don't say anything else. So he then proceeds to interrogate him. Swan said that the reason he approached this woman was just because he wanted to check her out. Axel then informed him that that lady is an alien and that she's extremely dangerous and that he needs to be very, very sure that she didn't follow him out of the store, that they didn't talk or do anything that would have allowed her to get a beat on him, basically. And then they kind of changed topics from there because Ingo's probably, knowing Ingo Swann, he's probably crying again and freaking out. Jeff, are you back? No, you're not. Okay. Hold on. So then they talk about SRI, and he's like, hey, tell me when you guys get your experiments to like 65% accurate, and then when you do, leave a piece of paper under your desk that says the number 65 on it, and then we'll be in contact. And so that's how he ends this whole chapter. And I don't know why he thought this story needed to be told necessarily, unless the lady was an alien, because then it's insane. But so now we're left off with him just waiting for Axel to contact him again, after again thinking that he would never even see this guy again, but apparently he has more stuff to do. And then we're gonna get to his UFO encounter, which is insane. But I see Jeff coming back, so we will wait for him. Also, I just realized I haven't had the music on this entire time.
Sorry. We're back, boys. We're back in black in the back of a Cadillac.
Yeah, so I finished off telling him about the lady and him going to the train station and Axel telling him, like, hey, we'll be in touch, you know.
Okay, perfect. So you already talked about him, like, interrogating Swan about why he was in the supermarket, right?
Yeah. So I want to move on to the UFO encounter.
All right. Cool. So back in July of 1977, it was at SRI. Swan was having lunch in the cafeteria when he noticed Axelrod standing by a globe of Earth. Axelrod then went straight to the men's bathroom, and obviously Swan had to follow him. Just what you normally do.
Yeah, just following dudes into the bathroom.
Hold on a second. Sorry, my whole computer just went black.
It's okay. So yeah, so now we're like a year later in 1977, and like Jeff said, he's having lunch and he sees Axelrod show up, just there, like in front of all these people. He's just standing there. So he follows him into the bathroom, and they're like just in this stall together talking, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go see something fucking crazy?" Swan's like, "Yeah, I guess so, man." So he's like, "Hey, tell your friends that you're dipping out of here. I'm gonna take you to go see something." And so they do. They leave. They get in a Jeep and they just speed away from SRI, right?
For the whole weekend.
Yeah. He's like, "Take the whole weekend off. Like, I need you. I need you to come see some crazy shit."
Yeah,
so
the cars are outside, everything, dude.
Yeah. So they drove towards San Jose, and Axel asked Swan if he had ever seen a UFO. And then Swan then talks about a time when he lived in Utah that he did, and Utah is like a huge area for like UFO activity.
Yep.
So he then told Swan that they had a chance to see a UFO, but they would have to take a flight and then hike to an area where one shows up somewhat regularly, which is strange. I've never heard that in like any UFO encounter, that they like have this thing on a timer when it shows up, you know.
Well, maybe if it's in constant, like it constantly comes down at a certain time. I mean,
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just odd that it does that. But so they then get to an airport in San Jose and they boarded a Learjet, you know, one of those private, like, nice jets.
Yep.
And you'll never
Twins
guess.
were there.
Yeah, the twins, of course.
They're fucking there.
Can't go anywhere without the twins. So one of
One
them, like,
piloted one, right? And then the other one handed out sandwiches.
yeah. So then again, sandwiches, cigars. They're like, "Hey, dude, we got your sandwiches, your cigars."
Hell yeah.
I just imagine the one twin being like, "Dude, you love this sandwich when we bagged you and traumatized you that one time and made you look."
Remember that one time you ate it really fast when you were crying? It's like we figured you'd want to relive this again.
Yeah, remember that one time I looked at your penis and then you cried and I gave you a sandwich. Which why don't they frisk him here? You know, do they just trust him now?
Yeah, they trust him now. He hasn't said anything, so.
But so we do have a good investigation on this, on where he actually went, on
That's good.
Reddit, that I'll pull up here at the end here, that some guy who I'll
Found where it was.
Yeah, found most likely where this location that they go to was. But
That's
so
crazy.
they took what he said was probably about a 5-hour flight, and then well, Axel told him it would be a 5-hour flight and that they would have to drive 2 hours and then do a little hike. God damn, dude, it is hard to like orientate for 2 hours.
No, I get you.
So Swan then kind of, again, all these interactions with Axelrod doesn't really give him information. I know that at this point he's told him we're going to go see a UFO, but Swan kind of figures that we're under assault by UFOs and they need him to just come and figure out what the hell it is and use his psychic power to figure it out. So Swan then goes to sleep, and then when he woke up it was dark and they were landing on an unlit runway. Axel then told the guy that this was cool that we were doing this. We don't need lights because this is like a very high-tech jet. When they got out the jet, he noticed that the air was like very cold, which obviously they just flew 5 hours north of San Jose, so
Yeah,
cold
it's probably
outside.
he's normal.
Yeah. So they then boarded a camo van, and Swan changed into a jumpsuit, which everybody was all wearing these like weird jumpsuits, which I can only assume was like the jumpsuit that Axel was wearing when he first met him.
And like they had to remove all the metal, right?
Yeah, it was very important that they removed all the metal.
Or like the magnetic forces.
Yeah, something like that. And then he says they took a drive. Again, not a lot happens at this point. Like they just drove up and got out and then went on a hike. And Axel specifically, even though they just gave this guy cigars, they said, don't light a cigar. Whatever you do, just don't. We just got to move in silence. Don't talk. We got to be as quiet as possible.
Oh, because the light of the cigar. They don't want to
The light or maybe the heat.
Oh, the light or the heat. That's true.
As we'll see. So they walked about 40 minutes, he said, hiked up into the woods. And then they kind of crouched down behind some rocks where Axel said there was a lake down the hill a little bit, which he couldn't see because at this point it's still kind of pitch black. Then, like I said, he was warned not to speak, smoke anything, so they were just kind of sitting there in silence until one of the twins at daybreak starts like motioning to Axel. Like, hey, we got something. Like, it's happening over here. So this is how Swan describes the craft that he then
This is pretty
witnessed.
cool.
He said at first he couldn't really see anything because it was really foggy down by the lake, but then the fog began to change color. Purple, red, and yellow lightning bolts began to strike.
Straight.
Yeah, began to strike out from that fog over the lake into the woods. Right?
Yeah.
And then it was at that point that he was able to see an object in that kind of fog that appeared transparent at first, but then slowly became more visible to him. He noticed that not only was it becoming more visible to him, but it also appeared to be growing, like physically getting bigger.
Yeah.
He noticed that it was not really a saucer, but more of a triangle-shaped object, and its top angle kind of moved and inverted a little bit. That made it look more like a diamond than a triangle,
Okay.
which I thought was interesting.
Traveling through dimensions. That's crazy. It's probably just a wormhole.
Yeah, from what he says, he doesn't say it directly, but it appears as if this thing just manifested out of nothing. Like it didn't land there, it just appeared.
That's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, which, I mean, when we get into these investigations, I personally buy into the fact that UFOs are psychic objects. I don't think that they're physical crafts from another world. They could be, but I think they manifest psychically.
Dude, me too.
You know,
That's something we should get into as well. Another little fun thing to talk about.
I think,
Yeah.
well, I mean, with all of these stories, you'll see the connections that these are more than likely psychic crafts, right?
This is, honest to God, probably one of the best things we could have done for our first episode, because this opens up so many questions and topics that we can deep dive and go into.
Yeah, I mean, it covers so many things.
Perfect.
So then, he sees this thing growing, this diamond triangle shaped object. At that moment, he heard like a wind move past him, like knocking shit out of the trees and whatnot. And then the thing, instead of the lightning coming out of it, started shooting this like red beam into the trees. And at this point, the twins start freaking out, right? He noticed at this point that the object had now grown to be like 90 feet wide. It was, pretty big. It was making no noise. The only noise that it was making was these blasting lasers coming out of it, which Axel then explains to Ingo that it's like blasting animals out of the tree, like out of the woods, which I don't know what the hell I guess that's just a safety measure to like make sure nothing organic gets close to you.
Probably.
But so Axel tells him this, and then like at that moment the twins like jump on him, and then the trees around them just explode. Like this thing's like now shooting beams at them, right?
Yeah.
And as they're like, Ingo also noticed, like, as they're like laying there, that it's like sucking a column of water into the craft, which I thought was pretty interesting,
Huh.
Like, what do you think they're just... Honestly, I think what this all gets to is that they're just using the moon as a base to come to Earth and take our water, I guess. That's at least what it feels like this book is trying to say.
What if they're... Oh my god, what if it's like a terraforming? Like they're literally trying to make the moon... Or what if the moon is just the middle ground from what they're trying to do? Like, obviously, there's tons of conspiracies out there that we are used as like just like a giant mining species, right? For these beings and whatever else. Like, if you fall down that rabbit hole. But what if the moon is just kind of like just a middle base? Like, they go to the moon, they have a lot of their people there that then they come to Earth to get, and they can refuel at the moon and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I think they could be doing it as like a fuel station. I also think maybe they just need water, and there's no water on the moon. Right, so they just take water and bring it back to the moon to like swim in, like drink, whatever.
That is amazing stuff.
So that's like the last time that Ingo sees his craft.
What if it's not on the moon, but it's inside the moon, coming from Ryan?
What, the bait? I'm sure they're subterranean too. So like they lay there on the ground because shit was exploding around them, and then they notice that the craft is now gone. Like, the terrifying thing is over, which obviously, like I said earlier with the don't light the cigar thing, this thing clearly works on heat signatures. That beam that was being shot out was clearly operating on shooting any heat signatures near it. So
hey, let's see if we can get to 15K by the end of this stream. We got probably about 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can make it possible.
Here, I'll help you out.
15K likes.
So then Swan says after this, he threw up 3 times in a row, I guess, which I feel like that's just one time, just a lot of puke, and he had like a little cut on his leg, but other than that, he was fine. While they were walking back from this experience, Axel like asked him if he got anything, and at first Swan was like, what are you kidding me? No, like I was terrified. Like, no, I didn't like look inside of the craft or anything. But he said, basically what we said is that he believed it was just some kind of unmanned drone, hence the auto, sentry mode it had, just shooting whatever it could to be safe. Just taking the water and moving it somewhere else, right?
Right.
And Ingo had also heard stories before this about UFOs incinerating people, and, we have stories about that too, and that this is probably why that happens, because they're drones that just shoot people because they think they're a threat, and they don't know any better,
Oh yeah, it's probably just pre-programmed, just to, as it lands, it just shoots out the defense mechanism type deal, and then it knows that it's all right.
Exactly. So then they finally get back to the airstrip. Ingo, like, they're just like traumatized at this. Like, but Ingo does notice that there's a mail truck with an Alaskan flag on it. So tells them, hey, we're in Alaska, obviously.
Yep.
Back on the plane, they kind of talk about how the craft worked. Obviously, Axel doesn't have any information on this, but Swan kind of, like we realized that it materialized. It didn't come down. It just came into existence right there, right?
Right.
And then he also goes into how it's possible that they all saw something different, which you see in a lot of scenarios with like not even mass, but many people viewing a thing. Like specifically John Keel talks about it a lot in the Mothman Prophecies, that like, I'm trying to think. Swan calls it the reality hopper, basically. How you can see something interpreted different ways. It's kind of how people throughout time have seen flying humanoids, have seen crafts. Like me and you, it's like base level. In the ancient aliens theories, were like alien, like UFOs or angels or UFOs or whatever. Shooting
angels,
stars.
Demons, ultra dimensional beings. Like, dude, there's so many out there that could potentially be, there's so many things that just they point to it being correct, but obviously it's all just up to your individual imagination.
Yeah, but at that time, that's the only reference that they had to what these other dimensional, otherworldly things could be. Now, during the atomic age, during the modern era, when we see this stuff, we assume it's spacecrafts because we're now in an era where we think that that's like, we're in a technological age that we think that's what it could be, right?
Right.
But that's just a product of our time. So when we view these things, that's what we see them as. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
Like it's not exactly probably what it is that we're seeing. It's more of what we're reflecting onto it because we cannot understand what we're looking at.
Right. We just have to give it a reason. Just natural human, human reaction is if you don't understand something, you just have to try to make sense of it.
Yeah, it's like perception is not always reality. Well, it's not always reality, I'd say. Like he even brings up that when you do remote viewings that you might think you see a tea kettle, a boiling tea kettle. But in reality, what you're looking at is a nuclear reactor. Because in your brain, you don't know what the hell that is. Well, at least, the 70s, if you're looking at the inside of a you don't know what the hell that is. So your
brain,
brain
that kind of looks like this. And you just,
attributes it to what it knows. But then after they kind of have these exact conversation me and you just had, Axel tells him, we're not going to speak again, mission's over. They're shutting us down. And see you later. And that is the end of his experiences with Axel.
That's crazy. Goodbye and good riddance.
Goodbye and good riddance.
Yep.
Wait, what is this? So yeah, I know that was just a lot. But, and again, if any of it's vague, it's just written by Ingo as vague. He doesn't really give a lot of these explanations that we try to give of what he's even seeing. But to me, I think that's insane.
Right.
And people also can corroborate that he left for that weekend, yada yada. Like, it's very clear that he did take a plane somewhere to do something in Alaska for some reason.
Yep. Which is crazy. When we have that Reddit stuff, right? Are you gonna pull all that up?
Yeah.
Of where they went?
Yeah, so
it's awesome. Again, if you're hanging out in the chat, if you're not already on the YouTube, jump over to YouTube. We're going to pull some more stuff up here. And I do appreciate you, Ryan, for hanging out with us for so long. We hope you enjoyed the stream. We appreciate how much you jumped on and chatted with us.
So
make sure to spread the word.
This is the lake that this guy on YouTube, or on Reddit, what's his name? Deleted. He deleted it. He deleted his name, so we don't know who he is. But
perfect.
So this lake in Alaska is one he believes that they went to. I'm not going to go into all the research he did. This is like the area on Google Earth. But it matches up almost perfectly because in the book, he says he saw 2 mountain ranges. Which here we can see 2 mountain ranges. That he says they flew over to and back. And the flight time from this location to San Jose is about
4 hours.
Well, it's about like 5 hours, whatever Ingo said in the book, and that there is an airstrip there without any lights on it that also has like a postal area there, so there would be postal trucks, and that to get to that lake from that airstrip would take approximately the time that Ingo says in the book. So I don't know. We can't say for certain that he saw an alien craft there, but he certainly went to this lake. You know, like he had to have. If you can, track all that stuff down, it had to have. He had to have actually been there. Do I think he saw the craft? I don't know, but probably.
I mean, that's really cool. I haven't heard it told that way before, other than from this book. To be honest with you, like I've heard a lot of theories, but I've never heard of that. So that's really eye-opening to me.
More of like the psychic phenomenon.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that about does it for Ingo Swann.
That does it. Ingo Swann is a wrap. Let us know. We talked about doing moon stuff on Monday. Ryan, since you've been hanging out with us, I'll ask you, what would you like to see us kind of chit-chat about for Monday? We're going to come on. It's not going to be as researched as this 10-1, but we're going to be open to having some nice big conversations here.
Yeah, we'll probably like pull more like video stuff up and do more of that. But Yeah, dude, I'm exhausted. That was a lot.
Me too.
That was a lot of
Hey.
Ingo Swann.
But yes. But hey, thank you for hanging out with us, everybody on YouTube and TikTok. We appreciate it. And until next time, so what do you got?
What do you got? Thanks. Bye.